Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV and Radio, where wisdom meets experience. Join a dynamic lineup of thought leaders, professionals, and changemakers from around the world. Dr. Madeline Chan from the UK, Mariska Dupreya from Australia, Red.olaughlin from Texas, USA, Carolyn Heward from the UK, Zunette Lub from Cape Town, South Africa, as they share expert insights, personal journeys, and impactful strategies for success. Talking Heads isn't just a show, it's a global stage for education, collaboration, and inspiration. So elevate your knowledge, expand your perspective, engage in conversations that matter. Streaming globally, empowering locally, this is Talking Heads, only on USA Global TV and Radio.
Howdy, red.olaughlin here again. We're on my final show today. The one did talking at the corner bookstore a couple hours ago. Last hour I did the wise ones. Now I'm doing Talking Heads. It's my Thursday, 3 shows in a row. Today I picked a topic, hormone optimization after 50. What's safe, what's effective, what's new? As we get older, that's an area that I do a lot of research in, and aging, longevity, age-related disease. But when I go through the hallmarks of aging and the hallmarks of health, one of the areas that sticks out is the communications between our cells, or actually among our cells, because there's just so many different ways that things happen. And this communication issue is a big deal, particularly when we start talking about hormones. So that's kind of the preface for what we're talking about, and we'll get into it. So let me load my slides up here. Okay, there we go. Hormone optimization after 50. What's safe? What's effective? What's new? Live streaming on Amazon Fire, and as you can see, several other ones there. My show today is, as always, for awareness and education. My website is red.olaughlin.com. It's red like the color, R-E-D, Olaughlin, O-L-A-U-G-H-L-I-N, red.olaughlin.com. My books are available there, about 1,500 blogs, at several hundred videos, a lot of information on my website. The shows that you're looking live at right now, plus the archives, are found on YouTube on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. What's it called? Anyway, that's the location on YouTube. I also have some of my archive shows on my website. I am a TV host right now, but my primary mission in life is a researcher. I've never been in the medical or pharmaceutical fields, but I fell in love with chemistry way back in high school, got a degree in it, got an invitation to Vietnam, and never got a chance to practice it until about 10 years ago. I got 5 academic degrees, but none of them additionally in chemistry, actually in a bunch of different subjects, a bunch of professional certifications. But my real specialty in my corporate world was quality assurance, reliability engineering, and logistics engineering. I spent 31 plus years in the military, in the Navy, a naval aviator, flew for 16 years, been to 62 countries, got an invitation to Vietnam, as I mentioned earlier, an invitation to Bosnia at the end of my career. But what I focus on, what my real passion in life is nowadays, is what's going on in the human body at the cellular level, chemically speaking. I look for cause and effect relationships. What causes things to happen? What can you do to speed them up, slow them down? If you treat the cause, maybe you can fix and solve the problem. But if you're treating the symptoms, you'll never solve the problem. And why is that important? Because sometimes the body doesn't take care of the cause and it just keeps getting worse over time. On a personal note, I've been married 57 years, a couple kids, 3 grandkids, and my first great grandson will be turning 2 here in about a month, a little over a month. Best-selling author of 6 books, independent publisher. I've done around 50 books for other authors. Distinguished Toastmaster, writer. I have over 1,000 published articles on LinkedIn, mostly in the area of health and wellness, longevity, age-related disease. International TV host. Last year I was number 2 and number 6 in various categories. First 6 months of this year I was number 1. And when the end of the year came, I ended up at number 3. And I'm happy as can be about that. That's I just feel very, very comfortable that I was able to crack the top 10. Okay, hormone optimization after 50. What's safe, what's effective, what's new? Again, this information is for educational purposes only. I wrote one of my first books, I think it's the second book I wrote, Longevity Secrets for Healthy Aging, How to Live to 100 Years of Age with the Body of a 50-year-old and the Mind of a 25-year-old. And in that, I have a lot of information on hormones. So if you're looking to have somebody follow up today's show, that's a good book to get. Okay, if we're going to start talking about hormones, we really need to start with the endocrine system. I call it ES right now for my slides. It's your body's chemical messenger system. We talk about these chemicals that go back and forth talking to cells. It's a network of glands. The glands produce or secrete hormones, and these hormones directly go into the bloodstream, and they go throughout the body, the brain, the heart, everywhere. And they control our growth, our mood, our sleep, our metabolism. That's super critical. Reproduction, response to stress, and a lot of other things. But the hormones are the communicators. The hormones tell the cells what to do and when to do it. So if I have a cell that's going to my liver to do something, it's going to tell it, this is what you need to do because of things going on in our subconscious mind. That's what needs to happen. If somebody were to ask me, how many hormones are in the body? Well, it's a difficult question to answer. Classically, there's 50, maybe 60, what they call well-established hormones that are produced by the endocrine system. But being a messenger, that kind of clouds issues a little bit. But of the classical hormones, the hypothalamus in our brain has 8 or 9. Pituitary in our brain, 10, 12. Thyroid, couple. Pancreas, adrenals, again, 10 or more. Gonads, 10 or more. And there's a lot of behave-like hormones. And I need to hesitate here for just a second. Give me less than a minute to handle this. I'll be right back. I'm not sure what's going on, but I'm having problems reading right now. Hormone optimization after 50. But these behave like hormones. They're paracrine, autocrine, peptides, and there's a couple hundred of them or more. In our adipose tissue, our fat, there's dozens. In our gut, there's over 30. In our bones, there's several. Skeletal muscles, over 50. The immune system, over 100. And these are all messengers that act like hormones, but are not necessarily in the same classification as hormones. So it kind of adds a problem there. Peptides are your usual messenger that goes back and forth between the cells and the organs. And so when you start looking at what we call bioactive peptides in our bodies, there's another 400, 500, 600. And so those peptides now add to everything. So we have hormones that behave, and we have molecules that behave like hormones, and then we have bioactive peptides that also are messengers that act like hormones, but they all have hormone signaling molecules within them. Many of these peptides function as a hormone, but they're not classified as a hormone, and new ones are discovered every year. I don't think I have it on the slide for the show, but the last time I looked on the peptides, there's like 102 the FDA has approved. There's about 200, 300 in clinical trials, and those 500 or so that they're trying to get scheduled for something. But that's part of the medical industry. That's what they have to do. Aging, just getting older, causes a decline in our hormone production. So after 50, the decline, generally speaking, in our body is about 1 to 3% per year, depending on the hormone. But some hormones are a lot more sensitive at an earlier age. So if I were looking at a chart, I might have some hormones that go here all the way down until I get 50. I may have other ones that go all the way across and then drop off the edge of the world. But on the average, 1 to 3, we'll talk about each one of them. But it results in us looking and feeling, acting older than we are each year. We may not notice it, but you take a look at a picture of you 10 years ago. 10 years isn't much, but you can see differences. The cells become less responsive to hormonal signals. That's critical, because the hormone signals are there, the bioactive peptides are there, but the cells aren't responsive. That's a hallmark of aging. So the cells become less efficient at producing ATP. That's a problem. I don't have the energy to do what I want to do. And then all of a sudden you have, over time, more inflammation, more oxidation. So the hormonal decline is part of the problem, but the cell's decreasing ability to recognize, to respond to the cell, to the peptides, to the hormones, actually accelerates our aging processes. So we have them there, and if the cells were listening and acting properly, we probably wouldn't have as big a problem. So what really happens? Let's look at a few of these things. Thyroid, there's typically T3 and T4. They regulate the mitochondrial efficiency. If I have low T3, that low T3 slows my fat burning. So I have a thyroid problem. What do? I pack on some weight around my gut. Cognitive speed, I can't think as quickly as I used to. My cardiovascular vitality, those are things that are all affected by thyroid, especially low thyroid. Testosterone for both men and women. It stimulates muscle protein synthesis. We need our muscles, and that's in our younger years. That's what we did. You get in the gym and work out. Yeah, females will gain muscle, but they're not going to get the muscle mass that men do. It also is involved with mitochondrial biogenesis. In other words, creating more mitochondria in the cell. So if I have low testosterone, it quickens a process called sarcopenia. And you've seen older people that basically have almost no muscle, and what fat they have are hanging off their jowls, their arms, their legs, their gut. The sarcopenia is basically a lack of muscle. I mean, the fat is kind of taken over. The low testosterone also reduces our immunity, lowers our motivation, and it increases visceral fat around all our organs, which is it's a major problem. That is something that's a critical health issue. Estrogen, again, both men and women, protects the neurons, modulates inflammation primarily in the brain. Low estrogen increases dementia risk, cardiovascular risk, bone loss. Those are all things that are super critical. But I have a progesterone that's a key neurosteroid. And in our brain, that progesterone is used to calm down when we start getting overly excited from a neuronal perspective. The neuron's just going crazy. So when I have low progesterone, it results in a lower quality of sleep. I'm not getting, I wake up more tired than I go to bed. Anxiety, irritability, hot flashes. A lot of issues there. Growth factor, two of them in particular, the growth hormone itself and the insulin growth factor, number one. These both, are critical. One, and they repair our hormones, but they stimulate our tissue regeneration. If you look at, I'm a toddler, I got this much growth hormone, human growth hormone. As I get to my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, my 50s, my 60s, by the time I get to my 70s, I have very little growth hormone left. There are things we can do. But it also helps our immune system. But if I have low growth hormone, it slows my healing. My body composition changes. I actually shrink a little bit in height. My waist grows. My butt grows. Everything that you don't want to grow grows. So what happens when? Okay, my thyroid, generally speaking, it stays pretty good, pretty consistent. But over a decade, you're losing 5, maybe 10% of the thyroid T3 and T4. Testosterone peaks at about 25 and declines about 1% a year after that. Estrogen, similar, peaks at about 25, stable until about 45, until menopause, perimenopause occurs, which is that transition from a normal healthy life into menopause. And so that perimenopause, you lose 10 or 15% of your estrogen per year. And then all of a sudden you get into menopause and that estrogen drops off the edge of the earth. It's just 95%. It's a very rapid decline. Progesterone in women peaks at about 25, declines about mid-30s, and drops off after that about 1-2% a year. Perimenopause levels of progesterone fall about 75%. Postmenopausal levels of progesterone fall to almost zero for all practical purposes. Growth hormone, it peaks in our early 20s. Actually, it probably peaks in our toddler years, but for most practical purposes, there's a growth curve and it comes across. Early 20s, we decline about 14% per decade. The insulin growth factor, 1, drops about 50% by the time we're 50, 75% by the time we're 80. And the same thing, the growth hormone, it's probably more than 75% declining by 80. But there are some things, and I'll talk about them later, that we can do to address that. DHEA for both men and women peaks in our late teens, declines about 10% a decade. DHEA is a master precursor for literally all your downstream hormones. Loss of DHE weakens your immune system, kind of gives you some brain cognitive issues, and it affects our metabolic regulation. There's just a lot of things that each one of these things by themselves have a problem. But if you're seeing the trend, they all have the same kinds of problems. And as you're getting older, all of these things are building on each other. Melatonin, not something I talked about earlier. And this is kind of an unknown one to a degree. Some of us take melatonin at night to help us go to sleep. But if you look at melatonin, it's produced in the brain, but that's about 5% that controls our sleep. You walk outside in the daylight and you have infrared rays that will actually penetrate your hat, your skull, your clothes, and gets into your bloodstream. And I've done presentations on this and written about it. But melatonin is actually the one that gets all the way into the bloodstream and down into the cellular level, into the mitochondria. And it's one of those things that helps produce good, vibrant, healthy mitochondria that produce the energy for our body. Well, over time, we decline about 10% after a decade after puberty. But all you have to do is walk outside and be in the sun for a while. But by 60, we are 70% lower on melatonin. By 85, 90% lower. And when I have low melatonin levels in my body, not by pill, but just by normal life, because we avoid the sun like the plague, it's a major driver in sleep deprivation. It affects our circadian rhythm negatively. And it doesn't allow our bodies at night when we're asleep, particularly that first part of the first hour or two, that's when the body's just actively going about repairing everything. And so it affects our cellular repair when we're asleep. Insulin's not a hormone, but insulin sensitivity is. It's a major factor because, again, it's a signaling device in the body. Peaks in our teens, 20s, declines about 1% a year after 30. Its accelerated declination is caused by obesity, visceral fat, stress, toxins. It's one of the largest drivers of accelerated aging. Insulin levels do not decline with age, but the sensitivity of it does. So can we address the sensitivity? Absolutely. Again, it's one of those things we really don't talk about it much, but the insulin levels are there. You eat something, insulin, boom, it appears. It's not an issue. It's not a hormone. But the sensitivity, we're talking here, the cells are not responsive to the messenger. The messenger knocks on the door and the cell doesn't hear anything. And so the sensitivity of that insulin to put glucose into the cells that's the problem. So it's safe. Well, we've heard about bioidentical hormone replacement theory, good, bad, indifferent. I think it's a good deal. It mimics natural hormones. There's creams, patches, subcutaneous pellets, but it does require a lab-guided dosage. In other words, you have to show up. Where are you right now, when, and what do you really need? It's something you just don't buy a pill over the counter and say, okay, this is what I need. It needs to actually be created for the individual. That's a critical item. Peptides, something I've been talking about lately. I mentioned this in the intro, first part of the program today. Peptides, I've done a couple of shows on them. I'm really super interested in them. Here after the first of the year, I'm probably going to become an active user to a degree. I'm still doing my research on that. I think it's the way of the future. I cannot see how it cannot be. It's just, and if you're looking at a lot of social media nowadays, peptides are kind of taking over a lot of the commercials that show up on our social media. But peptides, MOTS-C is a very, very common one. There's if you're into the peptide business, MOTS-C is one of the real well-known. There's probably about 20 super well-known ones and a bunch of other ones after that. But MOTS-C improves insulin sensitivity. We just talked about that just a moment ago. If I have a way to improve sensitivity, why not do it? Now, our body makes MOTS-C, but as we get older, we don't make as much. And if we have a problem with that cell not listening to the peptide, I equated it the other day in a little video I did. I said, I come up there and I knock on the door and I can barely hear anything. But if all of a sudden I have a 6'4" Marine drill instructor pounding on the door with his fist and saying, open the door, that's a different animal. So our bioidentical peptides are those 6'4" Marine Corps instructors that are pounding on the door saying, get busy and get to work, because they are no longer accepting the cell's not listening to me. But the MOTS-C is super critical for insulin sensitivity, for mitochondrial repair, and for a number of other things. BPC 157 enhances tissue repair, supports the gut and the brain issue. But this tissue repair is a big, big deal. What's the show? There's an animal. Can't think of the right name. But anyway, known in the comic book world as being able to heal almost instantly. And so you add this BPC 157, I think it's TM 500. Anyway, the two of them act as if you automatically have this comic book character ability to heal yourself. CJC 1295 and apomorelin, they stimulate natural release of growth hormone. Peptides are actually stacks of amino acids. You stack them a certain way, that's a peptide. Stack them a different way, that's a different peptide. But the ones that they're making in the labs are identical to the ones in our bodies. And anytime you're making something in a lab, there's always chances for contamination, toxins, processing errors. And so the FDA, because it's in our body and we actually look at it as a medicine, it's not, it's a peptide. But again, that's the medical field, that's their perspective, that's their domain. And they say, I have to test it. You just can't come out with a new peptide and put it on the market. Well, yes, you can. And what they do is they put it on the market for research. So I'm a chief researching officer for my company. As a researcher, I can go in there and buy that. Can you do the same thing? I don't see any reason why not, because they certainly have a lot of availability. At the end of today's show, I'm going to talk a little bit about how would you go about doing that in your local community if you're really interested in learning more about it, what it costs, what you can do. But there are so many things on YouTube and other places that peptides, to me, are a major issue. I think they're going to be the medicine of the future. Lifestyle innovation. We talked about in the hormones, hallmarks of health and the hallmarks of aging, that lifestyle is the primary predictor, the primary instigator of our health. And so if I look at what in my lifestyle, my sleep, my diet, my stress, my exercise, and other factors, what can I do that I make choices on every single day that I can improve my hormone optimization? It's actually a lot of things. My sleep optimization increases testosterone and growth factor. So my growth factor, testosterone, if I get really good sleep, those things increase. Resistance training, talking about weights, increases the androgen, the male receptors in the muscles so that they're more likely to be listening to what's coming in. I can increase my growth hormone a couple, 300% by just going in a sauna for a while. Fasting, depending on how long you do it, 1,000, 2,000%. I'm right now, let's see, it's 124. I'm at almost 90 hours of fasting right now this month. I do a 72-hour fast. But I let it go. I probably will stop tomorrow somewhere over 100 hours, but I do a 72-hour fast every month. And that extended fast is something that increases my growth hormone, generally a couple 1,000%. So I do that every month. It's just one of those things I've been doing for years. It's not something that's easy to do, but it does get easier as you get older. But that's something that you might want to consider. You're just going on intermittent fasting, 18 and 6. The growth hormone and another thing called autophagy, those things all have an effect in that. So but it's something to seriously consider, especially if you're looking to optimize your hormones down the road. Okay, what's effective? What's new? Well, thyroid optimization, they normally do it by a test your TSH as part of your thyroid. And they test that, and they generally test just one aspect of your thyroid, but the parts that are deficient are not necessarily checked. And that's part of the problem, is the fact that when you're talking to your doctor, find out what is normally checked, what should be checked, because sometimes that extra, obviously it costs money, but sometimes you might be deficient in some other aspect of your thyroid, and it's not something that they actually go out and test for. It's an area to look at because that is something that you can do. Can I Google or put in YouTube, thyroid optimization? What can I do to, I use that all the time. AI, great source. But again, just don't take AI at the basis of it. You have to really ask, as I would tell my AI, you are a thyroid doctor, well-known, well-respected, been in the business 40 years, and I tell him who he is. I tell him what I'm looking for, where I want him to search. I have about 2 pages of prompt that I tell my AI, this is what I want done. And so then when I get an answer back, I know where it's coming from. But when I start looking at thyroid, it's one of those things that it creates a lot of problems, and it seems like I never really fix it. So I end up on a prescription med forever. But at the cellular level, they have this thing called reverse T3 and T4 in your thyroid hormones. But reverse T3 blocks the T3 receptors. But if I want to optimize things, I have to optimize both my free T3 and my reverse T3. So in other words, I can't have too much of one and not enough. It's one of those balancing acts. And so that is something to be talking to your doctor about. And if I have this thyroid issue, I'm going to have more than likely a weight control issue, and I may have a mental clarity issue at times. Sex hormones for both male and female. If they're balanced, everything's good. Muscle, mood, metabolism, cognition. But if I start having a problem, then I start seeing what can I do? Bone density, emotional stability. So is it a big deal to look at what can I do to improve my mood, my metabolism? Well, the sex hormones, again, if you start losing a lot of estrogen after menopause, we know that. You start looking at testosterone declining a lot. What can I do? Again, there's a lot of research out there for that, but it's something you can talk to your doctor about. If you're in perimenopause or not quite there yet, might be something to get prepared for so you know ahead of time what you need to be doing. But if I have stable, balanced sex hormones, my emotional stability is going to be there. Cortisol, again, a stress hormone, emotions, everything all tie into that. So stress management, there are so many different things I can do. My breathing exercises, going to gym to exercise. There are just tons of stuff on YouTube on stress management, stress regulation. You do that, you start decreasing the level of cortisol. So cortisol regulation is a big one, and what we're looking at to optimize our hormones. High levels of damage of cortisol also damage the neurons in our brain, our hippocampus. They also, high levels of cortisol, shrinks our telomeres. That's a big factor in aging. The telomere is the end of your DNA. The DNA is this little spiral thing wrapped around. At the end, there's a little caplet. And that caplet is sort of like a shoelace, that little plastic thing on the end. It holds everything together. The cell replicates into 2. A little bit of that telomere is lost each time. And so if I'm starting to shrink that up, all of a sudden, that cell that could have lived to 50 years now can only live to 40 years. But as soon as that cell gets to a point where it can no longer replicate, it dies. That's it. That's gone. So if I have extra cortisol, I'm actually increasing my rate of aging because I'm increasing the aging of my cells. Increased abdominal fat. Again, cortisol loves to store fat, and it loves to store fat around the gut. You have 4 times more receptors for fat storage in the gut than you do anywhere else in your body. Can you optimize cortisol through stress management? Yep. Through deep sleep? Yep. Insulin optimization? Yes. Through peptides, diet, fasting. There's things I can do there to optimize my insulin. There's just so many different things out there. But again, awareness is probably the first step. And don't go out there trying to fix everything at one time. Pick something. Maybe cortisol is the easiest one to pick because that's a diet, that's a That's something you can control. Maybe you might want to go to insulin next because it's kind of tied in with diet and stuff. So pick something and work on that. It may be a great New Year's Eve, New Year's resolution. Yeah, let's start improving that particular hormone in your body. Do some research on it, make some changes. If you're on prescription meds, talk to your doctor or your pharmacist before you start making any changes. Okay, so what's new? There's peptide-driven hormone modulation. In other words, now instead of having my body do something because of my existing hormones, I now get a shot, and literally it's a shot, an inoculation of, let's say, MOTS-C, and it's going to go in and it's going to cause something to happen. Well, this peptide-driven hormone modulation is what's now it seems to be the major factor I see in and really significantly improved health all the way around. A couple of the peptides out there, kisspeptin and tesofensine, address metabolic and hormonal interfaces in the body. There's just all sorts of things there. We have these things called personalized longevity panels. You go to the doctor, you get a complete, in fact, fair for Black Friday. All sorts of things that people will be offering. You know, here's 100 tests you can get for $49.95 or whatever it was. And they test everything. But the problem is that if your doctor knows you have a problem in a certain area, the doctor's obligation morally and legally is to treat it. You may not want to treat it, but his obligation is to treat it. So now all of a sudden, here's the prescription, here's whatever. But these things, if you can personalize them, okay, my free T3 is fine, my reverse T3 is too high, I need to work on that. On my fasting insulin levels, there are things that I can do with a personalized longevity panel that I can work with a doctor or a specialist in that area. And maybe you take that information and you work with your peptide doctor. There are things that can be done very, very easily. A lot of mitochondrial enhancers. I'm on one right now called methylene blue. I remember that back in chemistry class, biology class, back in college. The joke was then, put it in somebody's food and they'll be peeing bright blue for a week. Well, it wasn't a week, but it is, you do pee blue. I'm not quite into the bright blue stage, but I'm starting to see a noticeable change in the urine that I let go every day. But methylene blue basically gets in there and just jacks up, big time. It just ramps up the production of ATP in your mitochondria. It's a significant mitochondrial enhancer. There are other ones out there too. CoQ10, talked about that one before. Ubiquinone, the more expensive one. Ubiquinol is the one that you really need to have. But CoQ10 is found in every cell in the body, but it's there to also help the mitochondria. PQQ, pyrroloquinone, it's a molecule that really and truly it's one of the most fabulous molecules I've ever seen. Because when you start looking at a molecule goes in, and if it's let's say it's a antioxidant kind of molecule like vitamin C, it goes in there and donates an electron and shuts down free radical damage to another molecule. A free radical is a molecule that comes in, is missing an electron. It goes in, pow, it hits a molecule, steals an electron. Now the free radical is stable, but the one it hit is now a free radical. And so you get this thing bouncing around. Well, some of our immune system can handle that, but you get, like vitamin C, it can be reconstituted 6 times in order to get more value out of that antioxidant. Well, PQQ in the presence of glutathione can actually be reconstituted 25,000 times. So you get one molecule in the brain and it just passed through the blood-brain barrier. And now I have PQQ there, and it's a really significant mitochondrial enhancer for the brain's mitochondria. So now I have this thing that's literally an army of one, but constantly being renewed. Physin, spermidine, all those also help the mitochondrial autophagy. Talk about that's one of my favorite areas to go into. I fast for 16, 18, 20 hours. My autophagy starts. It ends, and then it's about 100% going into effective about 72 hours. But autophagy is the process our body uses to clean the cells. You figure that you live in a house and you never take the trash out year after year after year, that house gets pretty crowded. But if somebody comes in every month, every 2 weeks, whatever, and cleans out all the garbage, the cells operate more effectively, more efficiently. All the things that need to be recycled are recycled back in normal operating condition. Autophagy is a major improvement for your long-term health. So getting down to the last 3 or 4 slides here for today. Final thoughts. Before you decide on anything, test and find out what you really need. Just don't go grab a bottle of Lot C and give yourself an injection. No. Talk to somebody who knows what's going on. Get a test to know where are you at, so you know, okay, I'm here, I need to go here. Let's make sure that I'm getting there. Let's make sure I have somebody aware of what I'm doing, so in case I have some adverse reaction, I know somebody's looking out after me. The easiest thing to do is start correcting and stabilizing your lifestyle chapter. You have choices you make every day for your food, for your exercise, for your stress management, your sleep. Lots of things that you have control over. Stabilize and start correcting those to make your end of life decades better. Target optimization, as I mentioned earlier. Fix those areas that only you need to fix. If you need insulin sensitivity, fix that one, get that one under control. 3 months later, okay, I've got really good insulin sensitivity. We're going to cortisol. Let's go to cortisol next. Target where you need to be and do that. Adjust and track so you know what's going on. Quarterly is probably adequate for that. And I've mentioned a couple of times, I think peptides is the new world of healthcare. That's my opinion. I think you could do away with a lot of prescription meds, probably a lot of surgeries, because there's just so many things that peptides can help you with. But again, you can't get to you find out today I have stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Peptides are not the answer. Yeah, might help a lot, but they're not the answer at that. You need the peptides earlier so that you don't end up with problems down the road. Again, my opinion only. I'm just making you aware of it. Do your own research. Take a look at what you see. A lot of testimonial data out there. So you probably really do need to look at that closely if you decide to go down that road. And to wrap up this thing here, I got a couple slides. If I really, and I am really interested in peptides, there's a certain cost, there's a certain time factor involved. And I to my AI, I said, tell me about give me a list of doctors and clinics specializing in peptides in Houston. And it gave me a list. I said, give me another 10. And so I now have a list of 20 places, but I want to look at them and do my research on my due diligence. If I want to go and look at the clinics and talk to them, I know where they're at. I can go down to a local one. I want to look at their credentials. I want to look at how long they've been specializing in this. This is not something that's been around for a long time. There's a lot of protocols when you're running a lab. And, what kind of protocols do they have? Where are they sourcing stuff out? A lot of things that are involved in that. And again, I'm starting something that the medical industry doesn't know much about. If you've been listening to me at all, you probably know more than your doctor on peptides. But peptides require a personalized treatment system because you are different at your level of today than you were 6 months ago, or you will be in 6 months. So you need a personalized treatment, just like the bioidentical hormone replacement. You need a personalized treatment. How do they source things? How do they monitor them? And you want to make sure there's a lot of open communication and follow-up. If you show up somewhere and you talk to them and you never hear back from them, that's probably a clue. But with anything in there, I talked about cost earlier. The cost of the peptides actually do have a fairly significant cost. But you also probably have a cost for a full blood workup, a full hormone panel, lots of things there. So what can we say? Getting older sucks. There's just no way around it. Every day it happens to us. Some days we see it more than others. Some days we feel it more than others. But if we are taking care of ourselves because we're aware of it and we're going out for our own education, we can look, feel, and function better than our peers who are our same age. So again, awareness, education, and then action. So what's important, as always, artificial intelligence is a good source. Again, make sure your prompt tells the intelligence who it is and what you want done exactly, and then verify the stuff you get. Instagram, I'm finding Instagram to be a major source of information for health, wellness, longevity, peptides, etc. YouTube, I've always found to be a major source of information. Great providers of information, but they all have limits. Just don't accept something as, well, this email today came from Benjamin Franklin. Well, we know that's not true. So be sensible in what you're seeing. A lot of things going on there. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the show. That should be my last slide for today, and catch you all next week. You all have a great time. Bye now.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/usaglobaltv. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dyes. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.